All right. Well, welcome to the Everyday Tarot podcast, your deep dive into the divine wisdom of the tarot. I'm your host, Camille Saunders, hallowed high priestess, tarot reader, and professional witch. And today I'm joined by my guest, Dina Berrin. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me, Camille. I love to be here. And so, yes, I'm Dina Berrin. I am an intuitive guide, a tarot reader, a certified life coach, an author, and a teacher. And I have over 25 years of experience. I work with tarot, numerology, astrology, charms. And what I do is I help people understand themselves better so they can make clear choices that help them align with the person they would like to become. And I wrote the book, The Way Within, Igniting Your Intuition with Sacred Tools to show that intuition is a great source for guiding your choices. And my work helps people trust themselves and make confident decisions.
Lovely. Thank you. What a great pitch for yourself. That was very nice. I'm like, yes, I'm impressed. Job.
Thank you.
All right. So yeah, if you hear this episode and you want to be a guest on the show, I do have my guest inquiry linked in the show notes. And if you want to connect with Dina further, I'll have their email, website, Instagram, YouTube, and book all linked. They're mostly your name, dinaberrin.com. That's what you are on Instagram, on YouTube. I'll have the link. There's some numbers behind your name, so that's a little more complicated. And then the book, The Way Within, which, yeah, I kind of want to start with intuition because I think for me, doing tarot early on, just for myself, that was like the really cool thing about tarot is that it felt like, oh, this is a way for me to practice, like tuning into my intuition. What's your experience with intuition? Are you someone where you were like, oh yeah, I was always tuned into it? Did you have time where you had to relearn how to do that?
I think that when I was younger, see, I was introduced to astrology by my grandmother at a very young
Okay.
age. Like I was like 7 or 8 years old, and my grandmother would talk about people like they were their astrological sign. So she'd be like, well,
Mm.
that's a lot of Scorpio energy going on around
Yeah.
there. Or look
Okay.
at that Leo kind of thing. And I'm like walking around with a clipboard taking notes, being like,
Right.
what
You're
does
like,
that mean?
Leo. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So I was always interested in people, like from a very young age. And then I would say that like when I was maybe like in like my middle school and high school age areas, I was always very aware of other people's like what was going on. Like I could read other people. I was more, believe it or not, because I'm very chatty now, but I used to be shy. I used to be a shyer child. And instead of always being in the mix, I was more on the sidelines and I was watching and I was observing and I would get energy from people. And I didn't really know what that was.
Yeah.
But as I got older, and then after college, I started work. I have a degree in exercise physiology, and I started working at a hotel gym, at a huge hotel in New York City, and it was like insane, just like a lot of craziness, nonstop hours, and things like that. And I realized at that time that if I was ever going to see the light of day again, I needed to get a class because I needed to get out.
Mm.
And I saw a flyer that said Intro to Tarot. And I signed up for that class. And when I started working with tarot, my intuition became more of something that I was aware of. I felt as though it was always there, but it was not always something that I could name. Whereas once I began working with tarot and my teacher was teaching us like how to begin to read the cards and how to begin to get messages, I realized that I had that
Yeah.
connection. I had that
You're like, oh,
feeling.
that's what that is. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, um, so to answer your question in a very long and sordid way, I have had intuition for a very long time, but I just didn't know what it was or how to use it. And so, I mean, how do you listen to your intuition? It's a slow relationship. It is not something like a light switch. And honestly, sometimes it's easy to get wrong because I think that some people sometimes tune into a feeling that is more anxiety or fear related.
Yeah.
And I don't experience intuition that way. I experience intuition as being very quiet and very calm. It's just like this knowing that I have. It either sits like in my solar plexus area, or it's like it's in my body. I can feel it.
Yeah.
Whereas anxiety or fear can feel very urgent or very loud. So working with tarot has taught me to distinguish between intuition's quiet calm and anxiety's urgency.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I was just talking with a guest yesterday about I love to talk to people about like intuition versus anxiety because yeah, I think when I talk to people that are newer to tarot or are trying to figure it out like for themselves, like there is a lot of fear around like, well, am I just making this up? Like
Mhm.
again, kind of the like, yeah, tarot can feed the fear. I think pop culture certainly doesn't help with that aspect of it. Tarot always seems very scary when you see it in pop culture.
Well, in the movies, I mean, I feel like it's kind of like that plot twist or that,
Yeah,
that extra little additional wrinkle in the story. And then there was a tarot reading. And of
right.
course, the death card has to show up, kind of
Exactly,
thing.
right.
Dun,
It's like
dun,
you
dun.
always get the death, the tower, like only the most, yeah, sort of outwardly looking dramatic, externally freaked out cards.
Yes,
Uh,
exactly, exactly. And I feel like the difference between intuition and anxiety is also one of my favorite conversations because I think that like it leads into also like I know you have a relationship with tarot and obviously and the reason why I mean I was always just very interested in tarot, but I know that when people come for readings, and maybe you have experienced this too, people come to you for answers.
yeah.
They want predictions. They want to know. And so, whereas like maybe your intuition would say, something feels weird. Like, I don't know if this is right. Like, ooh, I don't know if I feel so good walking down that dark alley, or I don't know that I want to go into that empty house, kind of thing. Whereas anxiety is saying, everything is wrong. I need
Yeah.
you to fix this immediately, kind of thing. So I feel that if you're willing to use tarot, not for predictions and answers and immediately knowing. If you can use it for insight, it builds in some spaciousness that makes room for this intuition to find its way through.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's like a great, yeah, like sort of description and depiction of it. And I do think something about what you were saying is making me thinking about that. Yeah, tarot often works best like across time. And by that, I just mean like you might pull a card and not really know why. And then in 2 weeks, you'll be like, oh, mm-hmm. Or even like a year. Like I think when people get readings or when I've done readings for people, yeah, if people are coming at it from that perspective of like, what do I do right now? Right. Or like, how do I make a decision? Right. A lot of people, that's what they come to tarot readings for, some level of decision making. It's like it's not always obvious in that moment what the decision is. It's like with reflection I feel like that we can kind of see like, oh, okay, yeah, that's kind of what that was about. Um, and I think, yeah, like I think people can use tarot as a way to kind of like see possible futures. That's kind of like my depiction or understanding of what I feel like I get from tarot, which is like, yeah, maybe if you keep doing things how you're doing, this might be how things play out, but that doesn't mean you don't have like the free will to change or to make a different choice in that moment.
Absolutely. And just to add to what you're saying is I also like aside from that, I also use the tarot sometimes to pick up on patterns.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are seeing something or you are taking a repeated action, it's almost like, the definition of insanity. It's like you keep taking the same action, but you are expecting a different result. The
Yeah.
same thing happens. And sometimes if you are paying attention, you see it in the cards, you
Yeah.
see it in your reading. And then the question is, because sometimes what happens is people come to you for a reading for confirmation that they are right, for
Right. Oh,
confirmation
for
that
sure.
they know. So
Yeah.
then when you see the cards and you're like, okay, well, here's, because I try to read in a very, I try to read on the upside, but I do try to read in a very neutral way. Like, I am not here to make decisions for you.
Yeah.
I'm here to tell you what's available and to give you, kind of like the what I call like the 360 view, like the view from the airplane. Like this is the map, and you get to decide where it is that you go next. And the question is, now, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
So, and so what I feel as though tarot gives you options. And then if you are open, like if you don't have your already filled out ending, already
Yeah.
kind of written on the page, then that's how you can really use it to grow for self growth.
Yeah. But yeah, like you're saying, right, there has to be this level of like open willingness sometimes to yeah, not get the answer that you want, right? Like to be
It's
like,
so true.
"Oh,
It's so
I
true
don't
that
know what I'm doing," or like, "Oh, I thought that this was going to be a clear yes or no." And
right.
actually it's talking about some whole other thing that
Exactly. Because I mean, my experience with the tarot is that tarot doesn't always answer the question that you ask.
yeah.
It gives you the answer that you need to hear. And that's why sometimes like when I usually sit down with clients, I usually start with a foundational reading. I say, you know what, we're not going to ask any questions to begin. I'm just going to ask the cards, what do we need to know right now? So the cards can kind of get it out of their system, because sometimes a client will come in and they'll say, I want to talk about love, or I want to talk about my career, or I want to talk about, this house that I want to buy or whatever. And I'm like, okay, but the tarot doesn't want to talk. So
Yeah.
here's what we're going to talk about instead.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's very helpful, and then kind of just seeing where it goes from there.
Yeah, I love that. And I like calling it foundational reading, right? Because that's sort of you're setting a foundation too of kind of like I guess I think like this happens for me as a therapist as well, where it's like there is a power differential from like the person that kind of you're coming to express, personal things about you or try to get answers about something. And like you said, I love to just reflect that back on people to be like, no, it's right. Like, I'm not making decisions for you, right? Like, I'm not going to tell you what to do in therapy. Like, I'm not going to tell you what you should do. I'm going to help you see, hopefully, some options or see, like you said, patterns or how things are impacting you. But like that's the joy you get to have as an individual person is to make those kind of choices for yourself going forward. Well, I would love for us to pull cards now on this sort of topic of let's see
Okay.
where Tara wants us to have a conversation about.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I'm gonna
So
grab, yeah, what deck are you gonna
so I'm going to
here?
use the This Might Hurt deck,
Okay, beautiful.
and I tell you, this deck, it has I love it more a little bit every day.
Yeah.
And
Well, that name, right?
well,
Perfect for what we're just talking about, right? Of like,
and that's the thing. This
Tara's gonna tell you.
right, exactly. It's like I'm not
Yeah.
going to sugarcoat it. I'm going to
Yeah.
tell you what you need to hear. It might hurt a little bit, and it's what you need to know
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
much. All
I'm
right.
gonna get up and grab one of my decks while you.
Okay, what deck are you going to use? What deck do you like? Oracle? Do you like tarot? What are your or maybe both?
Yeah, I like both. I used to be strictly tarot, but now I'm pretty like the amount of decks I have are about half and half Oracle to tarot. So I brought one of each over and I was gonna see what's falling for me. It's funny. I have my oldest deck and my newest deck. That's what showed up.
What is your newest deck?
Um, my newest deck is the Seasons of the Witch Samhain Oracle one. They have different seasonal ones, but I have this is the Samhain one, and I love the backs of the cards. They're
Oh,
very,
they're gorgeous.
yeah, it's a little gothic and haunting. And actually the other deck I have has similar vibes. I'm gonna pull up my video so I can see what I'm showing you. This is let's see, Sacervito Tarot by Stasia Burrington. This is a
Oh.
local artist to me, and so it has kind of like the death moth on the back.
I think the backs of the decks are as interesting as the fronts. I mean,
Yeah.
this is what the back of the This Might Hurt deck look like.
Ooh, it's like intertwined.
It's like a snake, and yeah, it's kind of like the
Oh
Orbis.
yeah, right. Yeah, it's got like a double helix Ouroboros.
And if you can
Yeah.
see, there's like the world figure is like dancing in the center of it.
Okay.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
And then each of
And then you get
the,
the like
yeah, you get the sword,
and the
wand, the
wand.
cup. Where's the pentacle?
Yeah.
So yeah,
Interesting.
very
Okay.
cool. Oh, the pentacle's in all the four corners. Very cool.
Oh, okay. Okay. I
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, that's fun here. Well, maybe I'm pulling one of each for mine because I can't decide.
So I pulled my card, and it's
Okay.
so
You go ahead.
interesting because I'll tell you a little story before I tell you my card. So
Okay.
every year I pull a tarot card of the year.
Okay.
And that is kind of like the energy that is going to bring me through the year. It's kind of random that I pull out of my deck. And what I do is I separate the major and the minors. And
Okay.
so I just want to pull a major arcana card. And one year, and I do this in my room. It's like a whole ritual that I do usually right around the 1st of January.
That's cool.
And I'm alone in my room and I do the whole ritual and I pull the devil card. And I know how easy it would have been for me to be like, oh dear, we are
Right.
not going to have a devil year. And I
Yeah.
could have just easily slid that card back in the deck and then just picked another one. But I said to myself, you know what? I could do that. And in my heart of hearts, I will know that this was a devil year. So why don't I just kind of face the music and I'm going to take this card. And anyway, the card I pulled for us
The
tonight was the
devil.
devil.
Oh my God.
And but I really, I mean, I don't believe there are any bad cards in the deck. And how I read the devil, first of all, the devil is where you feel you are not enough.
Hmm.
It's the story you tell yourself. It is not the truth. And I also feel like the function of the devil card is laughter. So my message for the devil card is it's time for you to change your script. Like whatever you're telling yourself, I'm not fast enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough, whatever it is you are not enough of. That's a story that you are telling yourself. And it's time for you to say, you are enough, you are fast enough, you are smart enough, you are all the things. And stop taking everything in life so seriously. Have some laughter, have some joy, make it more playful. And I feel like so it's just a message that life is heavy right now. Life is dark, things feel uncertain. A lot of people are dealing with some messy stuff. And if you don't look for the joy, it will pass you by.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and I love that just looking at that double depiction on that card makes me laugh. Where I'm like, it's like they're like smoking a joint is what it looks like. We have
Yeah.
like the Baphomet like head, and then we have people, right, like sort of like partying at the
Yeah.
bottom, drinking, revelry, some making out. Where I'm like, yeah, it like looks like fun. Like look, and the devil looks very chill, right? They're like, yeah, you know how it goes.
Everyone's here by their own choice
Yeah.
and with like I know that so this is not I mean this is a similar like this was built on like many of these cards are of the Rider Waite structure but
Yeah.
this one is not specifically but the one like the Rider Waite devil I have my universal weight deck here where the figures are chained to
Right.
this post. I look at those chains, they're like necklaces. You can just pick it up off your head
Right.
and
Yeah, they're
release
sort of like
yourself.
comically large. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's self-imposed
Yeah.
chains. So you are the one that holds the key, you know?
Yeah.
That's what I see. So
Yeah.
tell me what you got.
Okay. Well, first I pulled the King of Swords, and I'll show you my card here. I would say it doesn't necessarily look like he's like super fun party, sir, but very foundational, I would say. Like looking very, I love that like he's wearing a cape or they're wearing a cape and we get like the cosmos, I think, sort of in the depiction of the cape down here, like
Yeah.
stars on a starry night ground. The sword is very prominent, right? He's looking very regal, but also like a little solemn, I guess. I know for me, we're talking about anxiety and intuition. I'm like, oh, that's the swords to me, right? There's sort of these
Yeah,
like,
the swords are all about what's going on in your head.
yeah, like sort of these like two sides to how what our brain can feed us sometimes. I was gonna look in here to see if they had anything to say in particular about the king.
Well, it's interesting
Generally, yeah.
that I saw that that King of Swords image,
Mhm.
the sword was facing down.
Yeah, right. It's kind of like I don't need this right now, or like I'm like leaning on it, like sort of physically. Uh,
So if you're leaning in it, are you leaning into, because I see the swords, like if I had to make the swords like a real thing in the world, I
yeah.
think of it like as like an Excel spreadsheet.
Mm,
Like the swords are very organized and
yeah.
structured. They have a strategy. This is how they think. And so maybe what he's doing is he's saying, no, I don't need to be so strategized. I don't need to be so structured. I don't need to have everything in its little place.
Yeah.
I have the mental skills. I'm a king. Like you're of like higher
Right.
stature. You have this
I have all
down.
the tools.
You
Yeah.
don't need to lean on that anymore because you have a very, you know, functional brain in your head. You can do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like that too. Like the sort of like, yeah, you have all the tools you need. Like you don't need to go looking, like you said, for more data or like looking in your spreadsheet for more things. And I almost get that part of the energy you were talking about from the devil of kind of like we need to like chill out a little bit. Like or like we need to take things a little bit more lightly. And not be so serious and
Yeah.
like I don't know, uptight, right? Like that's sort of the negative side of it, but to be so controlled, like you're saying, of sort of like sometimes what we might do with the swords, that wanting that structure and control. Because I think too, if I think about like a king, my ideal monarch, I'm like, yeah, they're not like lording over all. They're listening to people. They're, taking feedback. They're looking at patterns and like other things, but they're using all of that to inform the decisions that they're going to make and not just, yeah, using the spreadsheet as you so aptly named, but also listening to like actual people's feelings or context of larger things going on. Um, and then the other card I pulled, so that was the Sassurabito Tarot, is I pulled from the Seasons of the Witch one, and this is Seduction, which I was like, oh, we have like
That's very
devil vibes
devilish.
again. Right, yeah, where we sort of have it like depicts some like female looking people that are kind of like swaying around. It has like a phrase, so I'll read that. It says, hear
Yeah.
the roaring flames with the masterful trance that calls upon heavy, heaving chest. Give in to its alluring grip, if you please, but heed my warning of the claws that draw blood without mercy. Very intense wording. But yeah, I do feel like there is this kind of like, it's a very flowy energy, like the visual of the card. Like it's like, yeah, like this is again, like not so much structure. And I think when I think about like, right, this is about like the seasons of the witch, that like seduction is often like one of the I don't know, negative attributes associated with a witch or with women that are in power. Um, and I
And
feel
women
like,
are being,
yeah,
women are in the hot seat right now. I feel as though, some of
yeah,
the rights are being threatened or making it more difficult to vote, making it more like it's difficult for women right now in the world, so that's interesting. And but also what I'm getting as a message from that, it's like you can move in, like you can choose to engage with that, you can choose like however you want, but just
yeah,
understand what the potential consequences or repercussions of your actions may be. Like it
yeah,
sounded a little bit like it got a little bit dark there at the
yeah.
end. Like
It
if
says
you
like heed my
choose,
warning, right? Yeah.
yes,
Um, yeah, and like the first part of what they talk about with this card is like that it's about sex, but it's not about, it's like, it's about the aspect of sex that's like passion and pleasure, which I'm like, yeah, that we get the devil vibes.
That's
Yeah,
the
to kind of
devil.
like have the fun. We're talking about like the joy and pleasure of things, the excitement, and like letting go of control in some ways, that like finding freedom, and that they talk about the act of seduction is powerful. But like you said, there's sort of this like ne negative side to it, or just that kind of, and here they talk about like manipulation, as being one of the sort of aspects of
This is interesting because of,
the shadow side, kind of.
what's happening in the news also, because there's just a lot of kind of like skeletons in the closet, so to speak, that are
Yeah,
falling out, that is a lot about these dark sexual topics. So that's interesting that that's kind of the energy that came out in
yeah,
our cards.
yeah,
And listen, if you consent, then that's okay. But the
right.
problem is when you are, and I found the my universal
Mhm.
weight, when you are chained, when you feel as though you don't have options, that's when it becomes less pleasurable and more psychological.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And I think right in that, in the Rider Waite depiction, the devil is so much bigger, right, than the people. And I guess
And
in the other one,
scarier. Like he's just like,
yeah,
I mean, like with his hairy legs and his awful clawed feet
right.
on this perch. I mean, he's just kind of like a really, and with his like, he looks like a bat with
Yeah.
his
He's very
wings.
like larger than life, right? And he
Yes.
just like looks very like, oh, it's gonna, I don't know what's gonna happen, but something. Um,
And I think that also like a lot of it's expressing your sexuality can sometimes be a very double-edged sword. Like a lot of
yeah,
duality that comes with that. So I feel as though it can be scary, it can be empowering, it can be freeing, but at the same time it can be quite frightening for people because they maybe like bottled it up or were told that it's not okay for
yeah.
so long. So it's a I mean, there's a lot of different ways to read these cards.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think just like you were saying with sort of like the devil and like I don't know, our current political scape or what's going on is like there is this level of like, oh, women should just follow the rules, right? Or it's like, oh, just do this. And then it's like when we really look at it, it's like, no. That like even if you tried to do everything right, like that's not really what it's about. And I feel like that is that like double depiction too of the like, no, you thought that the chains were like, oh, I just need to follow the rules. And it's like, no, actually, that's not where you find freedom, is not just by like doing everything that they say, not just like being perfect, but really it's about like, oh, yeah, no, that's like a structure I don't want to participate in. And yeah, how do we find liberation beyond
Yeah.
that? Yeah.
And it's funny because that's how I interpret the Tower card.
Yeah.
Liberation. It's like, you know
Yeah.
what, that lightning struck and like the tower is on fire and it's like, no more.
Yeah.
This is freedom. This is liberation. So
Yeah.
a lot of times, sometimes the scariest cards that people,
Mm.
well, or what I should say, or what people think that are the scariest cards of the deck, I'm like, no, there are cards that are, like the tower has positive qualities to it. The devil, I feel like, has positive qualities. It's that Three of Swords or like the Five of
Yeah.
Pentacles. Like there are definitely cards that don't have any silver linings or not quite as
Yeah.
evidently as this. Yes.
Yeah. 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 And I think, yeah, figuring out like what is your liberation. And I think like to me, right, like intuition can be that. Like it is this level of like, oh, actually, like I have this like knowing whatever, however that works, that like kind of guides me or nudges me or does this or that when things are going on. And if I'm able to pay attention to that, then that's when we like really can kind of like so much opens up to us, which I imagine
Yeah.
is what your book is about.
Yeah, well, I mean, my book is, I mean, so as I mentioned, my grandmother introduced me to astrology at a young
Yeah.
age, but and I did have an interest in that. But what really kind of cracked me open was finding this intro to tarot class. And I remember entering that classroom. Like I feel like, I mean, it was years ago, but I can still envision it so clearly. And the teacher, she was like how the devil is on this post, like
Yeah.
larger than life. She was
Right.
just, and I remember thinking, oh my gosh, like I can't imagine. And not only, I mean, she was magical, but she was also extremely intimidating because I felt like she just knew stuff. She was
Yeah.
rattling stuff off. I was like, I don't know this language that she's speaking, but I want to learn it. And all I thought about when I finished those 6 weeks of class was, I want to be just like her.
Mm,
And I was like, whatever it takes. And that's when
yeah.
I started, then I really committed to, it was funny. So she was my original teacher, and she started me on this deck called the Mythic Tarot. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but like every card had a mythological story. And I learned about
Okay.
mythology through it. It was so cool. But she would teach, like she would teach for 6 weeks and then she would stop for a few months. And then she would teach for 6 weeks and then she would stop for a few months. And I was like, this is very stop and go. Like it's almost like when you're driving in a car and it's like gas, break. You're like,
Yeah. Well, especially for 6 week, kind of like intensives, and then like, oh, nothing. Or
nothing.
yeah.
And I'm like hungry as a student. Like I was
Yeah.
like, I can't deal with these long, and sometimes it would be 4 months and sometimes it would be 5 months. And I'm like, are you coming back? Like what's going
Yeah.
on? And so I switched teachers and I found a class that taught every Monday night,
Okay.
48 weeks a year. I mean, they didn't teach like the week of Christmas, the week of,
Yeah. I had some
Thanksgiving, but like,
exceptions, but
right.
pretty
But it was
much.
like 48. And what they would do is they would teach the entire deck in 1 year. But what they would do is, I call this the rotisserie chicken effect. It's like, so this year we're going to learn the titles of the cards. And then next year we're going to learn through the colors. And then next year we're
Mm.
going to learn through the symbolism. And then next, so it's like every year I went, I mean, if I was in New York City, I never had plans on a Monday night because I was always going to that class. And this is before COVID. So this is before it was online.
Yeah.
checked my butt down to, it was right around the Empire State Building. It was like tourist city. And I'm like, get out of my way. I'm going to my
Yeah.
tarot class kind of thing. And I went for 8 years,
Wow.
almost every Monday night. And this is why I feel like the tarot, I joke around, but say I speak two languages. I speak English and I speak tarot
Yeah.
because I have learned. So when somebody says to me, "Oh, I'm having such a Three of Cups day," I'm like, "Oh, that's a good," kind of like if you tell me anything about the cards, I can instantly, I can picture it and I can get in it. But I learned through they taught the universal weight deck.
Hmm.
So when I first started, I started with the mythic, as I mentioned. And then when I went to my new teachers, my teacher said to me, well, if you're going to learn with us, you got to get rid of the mythic.
You gotta have the classic.
Right. You
Yeah.
got to use this. And for like the first month or two of class, what I would do is I would use the universal weight in the class. But then when I would go home, I would use my mythic because I was more comfortable with
You know,
it.
like the rules. Yeah.
Exactly. And my teacher said to me about 2 months in, because he's like, you're not learning as fast as I thought you would, considering how often you come. He said, will you be honest with me if I ask you a question? I was like, oh, here we go. He said, when you leave here, he said, what deck do you use?
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, I'm busted. So he said, you have to use the universal weight. So I did start using it. And it was funny. It took me a while to change decks. Like then I was like very married to the mythic, and then I became very married to the universal weight. So my question to you is,
Mm.
how do you get to know a deck? Like, how many decks do you use? Like you just said that you just got one of these decks. It's a new deck. And these
Yeah.
decks are not like, here's a square, here's a circle. I mean, they're complicated decks.
Yeah.
How do you get to know a deck? And at what point do you stop kind of getting to know for you and start using it with clients?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it depends, of course. I think like really how I get to know it is I just use it a lot. Like pretty every new deck, I'm like, ooh yeah, like I want to like touch it, feel it, look at it, carry it in my bag. I definitely pretty much always have a tarot deck on me, especially if I'm like traveling. Maybe not always like in my car if I go to the store, but sometimes. Um, and yeah, I've actually never had like a traditional Rider-Waite Smith deck. I've like studied them and seen depictions of them and Should get one day. But my first deck, it's modern, but a lot of my, yeah, most of my tarot are like built off of that, of course. And like I talk about that on the podcast and the history of that deck. But I also think that, yeah, when I first kind of what so I had been using tarot on my own, reading for myself, but basically telling no one. Like I would be in my home and do it, and I was very into it. And I would use some tarot apps, like if I was like on the go and I didn't have a deck, but I was like pulling a card at least every day, kind of really trying to get to know it. And I'm in like an online coven of people, and we met in person for a retreat. And one of my friends did like a tarot 101 class. So we, looked at the Rider-Waite deck, some cards, and they really taught us, right? What, how do you figure out, right, what the card is about without looking at the book, right? You look at all the symbols, you look at, yeah, what do you know about mythology? Like, what do you know about what the name of the card is, or the numbers, or the colors? And that really probably like really kicked me off of like, oh, this is like fun and like a pattern, like you're saying, or like, oh, that if I get any tarot deck, I can already know some stuff about it, even if I've never opened it, right? I can kind of know some things about the cards. And it's very interesting to me when I have guests on. I would say almost every guest like started out with a preference of tarot or oracle. Some people find tarot intimidating. Some people like the structure of tarot. Oracle has structure, but it's not consistent structure across decks. And so that was very interesting to me. I definitely, perhaps more like you, I'm like love structure, love a plan, like love a spreadsheet. So I loved tarot because I knew what to expect kind of from it. Yeah, now if when I work with folks or do readings, I did readings like at our local Pride event last year where I was just doing like one card for like literally anyone that came by. I let people pick their own decks if of what I have available. I don't mind if people touch my decks. I will cleanse them or whatever when I come home. I don't have any decks that are like just for me, really.
I was going to ask you if you have like just for you decks.
Yeah, I don't like, yeah, I mean, I don't usually bring all of my decks when I go places, so I certainly have like my current preference or whatever the vibe of the event is or people I'm reading for. I'll bring ones that I think they would like, or like I have a friend that's very into herbalism and I have like an herb crafting deck, so I'm like, oh yeah, if I'm gonna hang out with her, I'm always bringing that one. I have a deck that is Oracle and is very like for business owners. So when I go to like networking stuff or like when I'm doing like quarterly planning with some of my colleagues, like I bring that deck because it's fun to pull from and it's very different than other tarot. But yeah, I don't have any sort of like just for me decks yet. I'm like, I have 13 decks. I'm like, and that's it. But I actually was just looking at one today, so I'm beginning a new one. But I like to get decks when I travel, like if I like as a souvenir kind of like from a place. And usually it's like I just go in every witchy shop that I see and I find one that works
That
for
speaks to
me
you.
and yeah,
Yeah.
that calls out to me. And I think the first time I got an Oracle deck, I went in being like, I'm gonna get a tarot deck, and then I just didn't like any of them. There were a lot, but I was just like, but I found an Oracle one that I really liked. And so that sort of was like, okay, I guess I'm getting an Oracle deck. And
It has to speak to you. I feel
yeah,
as if your deck doesn't speak to you, it's funny. I was just talking to somebody today who
yeah,
was telling me that she really prefers Oracle decks over tarot. She says she's just never, she's like, I think it's a past life thing. She says, I can't with the tarot deck. She goes, I understand it, but I just don't feel like,
yeah,
she goes, I feel so drawn to my Oracle deck. And she said, somebody sent me a tarot deck in the mail. She said it's called like the Good Tarot. I don't know. And I said, well, the Good Tarot, I did a quick look up on Amazon. I said, it got a 4.7 stars. I said, people
yeah,
like this deck. She said, I don't know. She goes, I'll let it sleep. She goes, maybe I'll sleep next to it or something. She
yeah.
goes, I may
See what
not. She goes, I'm
happens.
not going to open it yet. She says, I might give it away. We'll see. But I was
Yeah,
just laughing because it's like, you just know. And it's,
yeah,
it's, it's like intuition. It's either a deck you can work with or it's not.
yeah. Yeah, and I think when I used to like run a lot of tarot meetups where people would just like bring all their decks and we would just like chat and read and look. So you got to see like a lot of different decks, right? There's
Yeah.
so many decks. Like even the best sort of like witchy stores, maybe have like 100 or two. But there are thousands. There's so many decks and new ones all the time. And so it was very fun to get to, yeah, see like I would have people where we would show up with the same decks, even if they were sort of niche, where I'm like, oh yeah, of course, like we're gonna get along because we have multiple decks that are the same, right? Or some people where I'm like sometimes the art is beautiful or like I'm like visually I like it, but then there's not that, like you said, there's not that like, ooh, I want it, like it's calling to me. So that's something more that I've experienced when in having a tarot podcast where I'm like looking at tarot all the time and like thinking about it and like thinking about how to share it is that yeah, it has to feel gotta feel right. So I ended up with like most recently I've gotten almost all oracle decks because when I've looked at tarot decks I'll be like, yeah, it's pretty or like, yeah, I like it, but it's just like, yeah, it wasn't, they weren't speaking to me in that way. And Oracle felt exciting because it's like, well, every deck is new, right? I have to learn a whole new system. And that did feel a bit exciting after
Yeah,
doing
I like to learn. I
5
like to be
years.
challenged. That sounds
Yeah.
fun. And so do you use your either Oracle or your tarot decks in your therapy practice, or do you keep them very separate? And if so, so you
Um,
nodded your head, yes, how do you use it?
yeah, it depends. So because I'm virtual, like I kind of have to be creative sometimes about how I show decks or just like obviously like the client's not going to have the same deck as me. So sometimes I'll do it if anyone's familiar of like with doing art therapy style where basically like we will both pull cards and then we'll have a discussion based off of what we pull. Kind of what you and I did. But like they'll pull from their deck and I'll pull from mine. Maybe we'll pull on the same topic. Usually if when I'm doing it in therapy, I'll let the client kind of like what are you seeing? What's coming up for you? What do you think of first? Like they lead the conversation and then I'll share basically like things that I think feel relevant or like, oh, I pulled that card too, or they feel similar. So that's like one way I've done it. I attended a therapist who tarot retreat where we talked about how to like have your clinical paperwork say that you do tarot. Kind of like the logistics. How do what do you do? Okay, they show up in session, they want to do tarot, like, well, what are you doing? So I have a guidebook of like different prompts basically. So that's helpful sometimes where I've done something where I'll say, okay, today, we're gonna go through the deck. You go through yours, I'll go through mine, and we'll pick out, some cards that feel like archetypes that are going on for you right now. Or I've done ones of like, okay, when we're setting goals for therapy, like can the tarot help us kind of like narrow that down, distill something down about what we want to work on together? So really it's like very, yeah, different. Like it's just kind of whatever in that moment feels right. That's probably what I've learned through tarot and therapy is like I might go in with a plan and then when I'm actually there in the moment, right, it's what I'm trying to listen to or pick up on things that are happening in the moment. Um, I'm trying to think if I have a document camera, like, which is like, if you ever, I'm like, when you used to have like the teacher that would like, write on, on the like
On
plastic
the
thing
like
and then
the
roll it.
projector?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like that. So yeah, you get the above image. So I will sometimes like turn off you can't see me, but you'll be able to see the cards. I do that sometimes with clients too. If we really are talking about like we want to like look at the same cards.
Well, that's
But
really
most
nice
clients
because
I work with, like we don't have the same decks, so we kind of have to be creative. But it also it like I show up in therapy different when we're doing tarot because it feels a bit more client led than like sometimes other ways of doing therapy. And it feels more like I do things too. Whereas a lot of times in therapy, I'm like asking them questions and then they're talking and like I'm not necessarily like divulging a lot about myself. Like I will sometimes, but tarot, the way I approach it in therapy is more like art therapy. And in art therapy, a lot of what you do is like you are also doing art, like as the client is doing it. Sometimes like on the same prompts or things, or like I said, sometimes you share like what you drew or what was coming up for you, usually as a way to like, share patterns or things that were going on with the client. And I think sometimes it's literally just like it's gonna be really awkward if your client's doing art for 20 minutes and you're just like staring.
But it also, like, if you're involved in it, I would imagine that it almost like creates a safer space.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we're both in this. Like,
Yeah.
I'm
And
going
I
to get
think,
in this
yeah,
safe
like
space with you.
tarot, art is visual, right? Like that's like the other thing that feels very different. Whereas a lot of times in therapy, it's very talk therapy focus. And I think initially in tarot, before I became a therapist, what I loved is that as someone who is anxious sometimes and is very in my head and loves a plan and structure, like tarot forces me out of that because like you can't just go off of words. You have to go off of like imagery and across decks, and it makes me get into, like you said, like a different part in my body,
Yeah, and you
right?
feel it.
Yeah.
Yes, it
It's not just
becomes.
like woo woo in my head, which, like you said, it's kind of how anxiety can feel, or
Mhm.
like heart racing, like you're out of your body when it's happening. But the intuition and like when I do tarot, it feels very grounded. It feels, yeah, like you said, I feel it sort of in like a lower, like yeah, solar plex, like a different kind of like chakra energy. It feels very like heart based also, like I'm really connecting with people. And yeah, like functionally, what I do is I just like, of course, I talk about tarot a lot. So sometimes like it will just come up of like, oh yeah, I have a tarot podcast, and clients are like, ooh, okay. And so I will have clients that go and like listen to it, or yeah, it allows them to kind of like see me in a different way
In
also.
a different way. That's really
Um,
nice. Yeah.
and I work with a lot of like witchy, queer clients. So I'm like, the Venn diagram is a circle sometimes about like, oh yeah, no, like we're all like in this like pagan, queer sort of space. And I do feel like in queer community, like paganism is pretty normalized. I think because there's like the level of like, well, it's you already stepped outside like the sort of the norm. And what's paganism also to do that? And it just feels, I think also a lot of people grew up in religious institutions that were maybe very anti-intuition, anti-tarot, anti-devil, and a lot of those things kind of got like packaged together, anti-paganism. And that kind of, again, when people like step outside of that, they're like, oh,
Well, they
here's
can
all those things
explore
that
it.
I was
Yeah.
told were like bad, evil, the devil,
Forbidden.
right? Like gonna ruin me. And actually, like, they all seem fine. And actually, maybe I'm recognizing, right, what they didn't want is for me to like think for myself or to not need to go to a religious institution to find my answers that I wanted or needed.
Wow. Yeah. And it's, I mean, and you realize also that it's a safe space where you can be exactly who you want to be and you'll be accepted.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I think like that part has been fun for me, again, like as therapist, tarot reader, is to bring more of like myself also just like into therapy or into tarot, or just to talk about my special interest of tarot on many episodes of my podcast. Because I think like tarot is very accessible, and I want people to like understand that about it. That also you don't have to go to a tarot reader. Like that's a great fun experience, and like you can do it yourself. Like you can figure it out. You can try it. A lot of it happens through practice, and that it's not necessarily like you have to memorize it or
No,
have
it's
to
looking at
be.
images. It's funny. So I created, I have this little extra thing that I do. I created, I have charms. So
Okay, yeah, I wanted to hear more about this. Okay.
so here's my charm kit. And it's
Okay.
just like a little, like you say, you can put a tarot deck in your bag. This is
Yeah.
like
You can
even
put
more
charms in
than a
your
deck.
bag. Okay.
And so what the charms are, like, I don't know if or do you wear a necklace? Do you have like anything that you wear around your neck?
Yeah, sometimes I wear like crystals a lot of time around my neck. Just
Okay.
not always the same one. Yeah.
So maybe the crystal has special meaning to you. Like I did a reading yesterday and the woman had a tent
Mm,
charm. And I was like, oh, so what does the tent mean? And she said, being with, my tribe. I
yeah.
was like, oh, I love that. And
Yeah.
and so what these are, so I can show you like inside my
Mm.
little, so I have like maybe,
Oh, I'm like they're like Monopoly pieces.
yeah,
That's what I
exactly.
first
So I'm just
thought.
gonna show you a couple. Like, so like for
Yeah.
example, like this is
Okay.
a crown. This is a ladder, like a little ladder. This is a dumbbell,
Oh,
like
okay.
you can
Yeah.
like a weight kind of thing. This is a rocking horse. This is a spoon. Like so everything in
Ooh.
the my charm kit are things you've seen before. And so I always feel like if people are like, where do I start? Where do I start? The charms are an excellent place to start because everything in this kit, like everything I just showed you, is something you've seen before. It's not like you're,
Yeah.
oh, here's an ace of pentacles. What is an ace of
Right. Like
pentacles? Or
no, it's
here's
like
a
no
Hierophant.
learning required.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So what we do with I can do a charm reading for you just to, we
Sure.
can play here. I don't look. I put my hand in the charm kit and I pull out, okay, I pull out one charm. So do you see this?
It looks like a giraffe?
Yeah,
Question
yeah.
mark? Yeah.
So yeah, so
Cool.
that's so
Okay.
this is so it's got like a little, that's why I call it a charm because it's got like a little,
Yeah,
necklace
like
if I
you could
want.
wear it.
So here's how this works. So I ask you about four questions. So the
Okay.
first question you already answered is, what is this item? You
Okay.
said it was a giraffe.
Yeah.
So imagine, here's the second question. Imagine I come from a place, a planet, whatever, that has no giraffes. Like I've never seen a giraffe. Like I don't know what it is. I don't know what it does. I don't know like what its purpose, its use, its function. Like I don't know anything about a giraffe. And you, of all the people in the world, have been chosen to explain to me what a giraffe is. And when I'm done talking to you, when I'm done getting your explanation, I'll be able to spot a giraffe and know what it
Mm.
is. And there is no wrong answer. The only answer I won't accept is I don't know. So,
Yeah.
how would you explain a giraffe to me?
Okay. I would say it's an animal. It has a long neck to eat leaves off of trees that are high up. I think it lives in like the savannah, so a hot place that's open. They, I believe, are like an herbivore, so they only eat plants and chew a lot of plants up. They, yeah, have a long neck and four legs.
Do they
They
have
have,
any like traits or characteristics? Like, do they have personalities?
Hmm. I feel like they're inquisitive. I think right that they are, I would say, specialized because they have this sort of like different proportioned body where they can eat things that are higher up than other animals that are have their head closer to the ground, like other animals I know. Um, they have spots and I'm like, I don't even know, but little like I'm like, I just think of their little ears on their head that stick up, I guess, that are sort of like in the charm, I think you can see those. So
There's a little,
those
yeah.
feel, yeah, specialized there. I feel like
Okay.
that's about what I know. I think they have
All
long
right.
tongues and little tails. So, but yeah.
So, thank you. Thank you so much for describing that. Now, this may sound like a strange question, but just go with it. Camille, how are you personally like a giraffe?
Mm, yeah. I think inquisitive. And I don't know why I think that about them, but they just give off that look. I'm very curious about things. I think even when you ask the question of like, right, say you're from another planet, and I was like, oh, we're doing anthropology. Like, so I was trained as an anthropologist for my undergrad. So I'm like, oh, great, I love this. Like I have to, explain it in a way that is maybe foreign to other people. So I think. I'm thinking about what you shared earlier about being an observer. I bet giraffes are good observers because their heads are up really high and they can see further than I would say most creatures, I mean, other than maybe like a bird or elephants,
I love
uh,
that.
in their area. What else? Yeah. I don't,
Okay, I'll take that. So
yeah.
then the last question
Okay.
of the charm is imagine that this giraffe came here to this reading today, and just for our purposes right here, right now, this giraffe could speak.
Hmm.
And it had a very important message, like a little fortune to give to you. I mean, this message could fit on a fortune cookie message. It doesn't have to be like a big tome of a thing. So, my question to you is, what does the giraffe want you to know?
Mm. It's very clear to me. I'm like, there's nothing wrong with being able to like see ahead or see things that other people can't see.
I love that. That's wonderful. And so, you sometimes what I do is after people give their answers to the question, I just add a little bit. And so, as far as the giraffe is concerned, aside from all the things that you said, I mean, I don't really know of another animal in the world that has the features that a giraffe does. Like it's,
Yeah.
I don't know of any other animal that has a neck like that. And I honestly think that giraffes are beautiful. They're one of my most favorite animals. They come across to me as very peaceful. Like
Mm-hmm.
they're like, they're not here to make trouble. They're not here to like eat your lunch. They're not here to be
Yeah.
difficult. They're like, they're just like, I feel like they're beautiful and they're unique and they're just I don't know. I just feel like they always add to like whatever, like if there was a, kind of like a desert scene and then a giraffe showed up, I'm like, oh, now it's perfect, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they are unique. They are very unique. They are really like I kind of consider them a unicorn of an animal because
Right.
they're only as one of a kind. They really are. So I feel like this is for you too. You are unique. You are one of a kind. I feel like you show up and like you don't need to be like I feel like, this is your podcast. We're just chatting away here. It's like there's nobody
Yeah.
that's in charge, kind of thing. And I just feel as though you let the situation unfold and you let yourself be seen. Like, because the giraffe could kind of blend in. It's not
Yeah.
like, one color. It's a little patterned and, where nature's concerned, it can be a little bit, what you see is what you get kind of thing. But I want you to know that you are unique. Like you stand out in a crowd because the work that you do is so unique and special. And because of the work that you do, because of your skill as a reader and, all the things that you know about cards, whether they be Oracle or Tarot, you show up in a really unique way for your patients, for your clients, and add something really special to the world.
Mm.
So
Well,
keep
thank you.
being your unique self. And if you do stand out, it's not a bad thing.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I'm learning that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and maybe the giraffe is your spirit animal.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah, they do seem peaceful. Um,
They just seem really gentle. Like they're not here to like I feel like a lion or a tiger. I'm like, I can't promise that I'm gonna leave here with my arm if I engage with
right.
this thing. But like I really
Yeah.
don't think that would happen with a giraffe. I mean, maybe I'm just
Yeah.
deluding myself, but I really feel like it's a very gentle nature that they have. So, and you are here to enhance and to add to, not to take
Mm.
away or change or criticize or judge, which is really special.
Yeah.
So thank you
Well,
for what
thank
you
you.
do.
Yeah. Yeah, that all feels very true, I guess. I'm like, yeah,
I'll take
nice.
that.
I
So
want to
those are
be
the
gentle
charms.
and
So the
unique. Yeah.
charms, that's what they do. It's like they kind of just like in a tarot deck or in a tarot card, you see images. And so like there may be a bird or there may be a tree or there may be, a moon in the sky or whatever. And like I've got a bird, I've got a tree, I have a moon in
Right.
my charms. And the question is not what does it mean in the deck or in the picture of the card? What does it mean to you?
Yeah.
And that's how you get your message, which is why it's great to have the book if you want to look up in the book and decide, yeah, but before you look in the book, what message came through to you? Because you were pretty sure, like you didn't hesitate. When I asked you, like
Yeah.
I don't know a whole lot of tarot cards that have giraffes in them, but I
Yeah.
just feel like you got a message, and that's your intuition. That's what you need to come back to. And when you know, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I feel like, yeah, that, like you were talking about earlier, right? That's how intuition feels, where it feels like, yeah, it's like a message that comes through, usually pretty clearly. You don't really know, you can't really see like the why or the how, but it's there. And I think to me, like, yeah, it usually feels some level of like gentle or nudge, or I think you can like work on making that message louder, but that it's not like a scream or like a or like we talked about with anxiety, like a spiral or like a repetitive, like, no, you have to do this, you have to do this kind of thing.
Right. It doesn't have fear or anxiety or exactly all that attached to it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But what is, I know you shared with me, like when we just sort of chatted over email and stuff, that they're like tarot can help with like real life transitions, or like I think you shared that like with motherhood. So how do you like sort of use it when it's more like for yourself and personal?
Yeah, well, it's like I do have a relationship with the tarot on my own. Like I do readings for myself like
Yeah.
every day. I pull a card and I'm always working on being the best version of myself that I can possibly be. I'm always like, what's the message? What's the kind of like what's the learning here? I always just feel like, because like everyone, we all go through and motherhood has been challenging for me. I do have a child who has some special needs, and being the mom of a child who does not follow, like having a neurodivergent child who doesn't follow a traditional trajectory, like, and the thing is, like, if you have a kid that goes into kindergarten and first grade and like follows the whole path up to high school, a lot of people are on that path. But if you have a child who has some learning differences and is unable to show up in that way, you kind of need to create your own path. And like there is no map. There is no and I think it was funny, I think I mentioned that I was shy at some point in my life. And
Yeah.
especially like when you have children, it requires you to like I understand the mama bear. Like I understand, I feel like, things that I wouldn't necessarily make a big ado about for me. If my kid needed it, I'm all about making noise. I'm all
Yeah.
about being the squeaky wheel because I'm like, this, we're not going to let this need pass and have it be ignored. Because I do feel as though what happens is, especially like within like the larger school systems, if you start letting things slip through the cracks, then, if not you, then who? Like no one else is going to speak up and try to do it. So I feel as though what tarot has really helped me do is pause and ask like what's happening here, like what do I need to know? And sometimes the answer is patience, sometimes the answer is boundaries, sometimes the answer is I just need compassion for and I feel as though I I was not I wouldn't describe myself as a patient person, maybe like in my earlier years, but I feel as though, I mean, my son is 14 now, and I have two daughters in addition to him. He's my youngest. So my oldest is 20, she's going to be 23 next week. So I feel that I've been a mom long enough that I don't have the impatience. Like I feel like everybody said, people have asked me before, like, what's the hardest? Was it harder going from one to two kids or going from two to three kids? And I was like, going from zero to one was the hardest. I'm like,
Right.
you
It's a
know
big
what?
transition.
If I'm giving one kid a bath, just throw another dirty body in there and we'll clean both of you. So making one pot of mac and cheese, I may as well just throw another box of mac and cheese in there and make more kind of thing. So it's like if I'm already doing the thing, I'll just, do more of that. But I feel as though not having to do it and then going into this motherhood mentality was a huge change for me. And learning how to be the best version of the mom that my kids need. And the thing is, I have three kids that are, even though they come from the same genetics, they are three very different kids. And you need to learn to just show up for them in the way that they need. And that took me time, but I feel that tarot allowed me to know who I was. And because I studied tarot before I became a mom, I feel as though that gave me like a little bit of an extra edge. So, and I'm not going to say that my kids, especially my younger daughter, my middle one, really did not like the fact that I read cards. Like she didn't like the fact that I had a little side gig going on at the time, which I left during COVID and it became my main gig. But, she would go to school and she's like, other moms are bankers and lawyers and like they come to like events and they're not witchy and weird. And then you show up. I'm just like, I'm the mom that you got. What can I tell you? I'm sorry that, like, I remember one of her friends, the mom had a Starbucks in her office building. And she's like, why can't you have an office building with a Starbucks in it? And I'm like, is that what this is all about?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that it was just her wanting to, like, I think when you're younger, you just want to be like everyone else. And my being different made her different.
Yeah.
And she didn't like that. And I feel like she's, now she's in college, so it's become less of an issue. But for a long time, that was a sticking point with us. And I understood. I'm like, you know what? I can't force my children to embrace everything that like just like you said, like some people were brought up thinking that witchcraft and all these things were like the devil's work. And I don't know, I kept it very open in our house. I don't know, if that was what my daughter thought, but she just didn't find it to be her cup of tea.
Yeah.
And I felt like, you know what, as a mom, I can't impose my wishes and my just who I am on her. I need to figure out a way to make this work. And it took a lot of strength and boundaries and compassion and all that stuff. But, we're both still alive, so it's good,
Yeah.
we made it through.
That's the important part. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I
But
think,
it was,
it's sort of, when we're talking about tarot as a tool, right? It's sort of like, oh, okay, I already had kind of this tool. I know how to use it when I was going into these life transitions that
yeah.
are hard, right? Like, I don't think anyone's like, yep, easy. Didn't have to think about it, worry about it, becoming a parent. No.
No, but I know all of my kids' birth information. So I know their numerology. I
Yeah.
know their astrology. I know their tarot birth cards. I know it
We're
all.
back full circle to
Yeah.
astrology as the language and a way to get to know people, like your
Right. And
grandmother.
exactly. So I know what my life path is as far as numerology and knowing like my daughter's life path is, my younger daughter, is that she does like to have the approval of others.
Mm.
And my being, I'm a life path
Right.
5. I'm like kind of like an adventurer, and I'm like, leaping before I look and doing all these kinds of things. And that to her is like, I can see like her face sometimes. She's like, stop.
Yeah.
Why do you have to be like this kind of thing? And I'm like, you know what? Just as much as I always say that my children are my greatest teachers. And just like they are my teachers, I am theirs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. She gets a living example of what it's like to choose to be weird, right? Like to choose to that it's
Well, it's
okay.
a choice.
And that, right, like that there are benefits and sometimes cons. But that, like that is you being your truest self.
Yeah. And I feel like this is like the greatest privilege of my life to be able to do this work and to be able to work with people. Just like, people come to you and they share like what they really think and what they're really going through. And I get to be like, I consider myself like a storyteller because
Yeah.
I tell their story through charms. And I consider myself a light bringer because I can shine the light on the places that are hard for them. And I can say, here's a path. I'm not telling you exactly which way to go, but I'm shining the light and I'll accompany you if you want that, kind of thing. So it's a real gift. And like you said, it isn't all, rainbows and unicorns. It isn't always easy, but it's worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think too, I know we sort of again started talking about like figuring that out about yourself, right? Where you do realize, or I think like I feel very settled in the fact of like, oh yeah, like I know that these things always sort of felt natural to me, or like feeling like I know things that are gonna happen, or just like that I'm like, yeah, no, that I was always like that. But now sort of like settling into it of like it's okay, or just that maybe I don't always share that with people, or I ask for consent before I do so. But I've had that happen with tarot where I was reading for someone and there were other people around, and I was like, I think this is for them. And then you have to kind of make decisions about, well, they didn't consent to a tarot reading. So do I choose to share? Do I not? Like, there are things sometimes where it's like, yeah, I feel like,
Yeah.
where you do have to make choices, or you have to, for me, yeah, it's important to think about like, yeah, do people want this information? Or even just that, like, yeah, this is a potential future for you. Like, yeah, what are you going to do with that information, right? Like, turning
Well,
it.
some people walk away, and that's the thing. It's like you, as the reader, you have no, like, after you deliver the news, after you deliver whatever it is you want to say,
Yeah, the
you've
mess.
passed it on, and you have to like that's then there's free will, so you have to kind of release like and not be upset. Like if people don't listen, then that's on them.
Right. Right. Which I think, yeah, is I think very hard to do, not just in this line of work, but even in like friendships or relationships, right? To learn that, yeah, just because you give advice or just because people are asking it, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to do what you say. I know, like, as a therapist, yeah, having like working with clients and then having them leave in whatever like way that they do, there's always like some level of like, good luck out there. Like, hope this is helpful kind of thing where you're like, yeah, right, you have to let go of
Well,
like
it's almost like you feel like these are kind of like in a little in a smaller way, like your children, like you care about
yeah,
them, and you've and hopefully you've given them some extra tools that they can take
right.
out into the world and be a little bit different.
Yeah. But yeah, I do think it makes you, yeah, you have to be really clear with like how you feel about what you're doing, right? Because again, if you kind of like look to other people to tell you like, oh, you're doing a great job, like this is so helpful. It's like some people do that, but not everyone. And if
No,
you're
not everyone.
waiting, right? If you're waiting for that approval all the time, like, ooh, it's not always gonna come. And do you still, yeah, do you still believe in it enough for yourself that you're able and willing to do it, even when people don't like the answer that they get or the
Right.
method?
Yeah, and I can relate to the flip side of what you were saying. Like, when for a long time, I didn't tell people that I read tarot cards because
Yeah.
I didn't want their judgment.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it's like we're in too vulnerable of a state, right? For that, where I'm like, yeah, I don't feel like totally like I feel 100% about it. And so first I have to get okay with that. And then then I can handle how might people actually respond or feel about
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
And I feel like that I've gotten over that hump now. And because when when COVID hit, and I had three kids home with Zoom school, I chose to leave my job. I worked in
Yeah.
sales for 22 years and I left my sales job to start my own business.
Yeah.
And that became, my intuitive life coaching work. And I combine, my tarot, just like you combine it with your therapy, I combine it with my coaching.
Yeah.
And and I didn't look back since. But it was definitely like a wobbly start because I was like, how is this going to be received in the
Yeah.
world? And now
Yeah.
I know that it's in a positive way. And if I feel as though you manifest, like I'm a big believer of like what you put out there is what you bring back. And, I don't have space for anything that isn't, honoring the work
Yeah.
that I do in the world. So I feel as
Supportive.
though
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. And that's a choice too. And you've
Yeah.
surrounded yourself with that, with your coven and with the work that you do and the communities that you support. It's it's kind of like a chipping away at finding the perfect way for you to move through the world and do your work.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, right, there is that side of like if you are anxious about it or feel like you're not going to get approval of others, like you'll find those people, like you're saying, right?
You
Like,
will,
right,
yes.
they'll come out and they will tell you. But when you're sort of like, yeah, sure in yourself and what you're doing, then for the most part, I only get, right, people that are excited, right, that I do tarot or like that I hear about it or they want me to read for them or they want have questions or where it's like it's also such a joy to like you said kind of like help people or hear about what they're going through in a different way, even with people that like are my family or friends where I'm like, "Oh, I thought I kind of like knew not everything, but just like doing tarot for other people brings a different side, I think, of like the relationship to it that's like very cool in a lot of ways.
It is. It is. And I think it is an opportunity for you to get to know, like if your friends are willing to have you do it for them. I feel like
Yeah.
because I know that my friends they know because once you do it professionally, like I feel like my friends they don't always want to ask me, but
Mm.
I'm like if you guys want a reading, I'm like you can ask, I'm like don't ask me every
Yeah.
day, but I'm like
Yeah.
you can ask me, and they're
Right. Like you
like
can ask. I
okay.
can always say no, but you can ask. Yeah.
But they love it, and I feel like sometimes I hear stories that I'm like, well, you didn't tell me this story, or I didn't know this, thing
Yeah.
happened, and it's because you're not with people all the time every day, and you don't always know everything that's going on. So it's
Yeah.
like I said,
Yeah.
it's a privilege, it's a gift, and it's also like I always say, anyone that I work with, it's confidential. So like whatever you tell me, it ends
Right.
here,
It's not gonna
unless you
leave.
want to talk
Yeah.
about it. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, right, obviously, that's also very important because for people to actually feel like safe in disclosing certain things or talking about what's really going on. And I think for me, that's the part that, yeah, sometimes with people that I'm like, oh, we're close or we're family or friends, that we don't, it's hard to share when you're going through hard things, I think. It's like there's still a desire for a lot of people to be like, nah, everything's fine. But I feel like tarot has allowed me sometimes to like kind of get like the real story about what's going on, or they're right, or I see like that they're in indecision or that they're like struggling with something, and this can help. And then we get to have like cool conversations that the cards help bring up around like, yeah, what would happen if you made these different choices and like then letting them, yeah, get to make that decision using that information for the future.
It's really powerful. It really is. And I feel like, I got so lucky that I met, that I saw that flyer on the wall and that I
Yeah.
took those classes when I did and that it affected the trajectory of my life so much. Like, do you ever feel like, I can't imagine, like, what if I never knew about this thing? Like, it would just be, like, I can't imagine my life without it.
Yeah. 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 I think, yeah, I don't really even know when I like first found my tarot deck. I can like narrow it down to like a year, but I don't even totally know when I first got it, or I can look at some pictures. Where yeah, it's like right, I had no idea at that time that picking up that deck would then lead me to like where I am now, or to have a podcast where I talk about tarot for more than 250 episodes because I have so much to say and so much excitement about it. That it would become such a fun, yeah, thing to deep dive into. Um, because yeah, I see it very much as like a mirror, right? It like can reflect back how people are already often thinking or feeling, or right, so a thing that they already know that their intuition has probably already told them. But they, yeah, need some reassurance or affirmation or someone to tell them the hard thing. And tarot will definitely do that
Yeah,
if you're
and then
open to it.
and just like this, there's there and I have become, and I'm sure you too, I have become more adept at delivering news or just sharing the message of a card without kind of like lowering the axe on someone. Like just being
Yeah.
like, well, this could be, or it's possible that you're feeling, whatever. Kind of try to, like maybe this isn't how they're feeling. I don't want to label them, but I want to
Yeah.
say that it could show up with this. And if that's what's happening, then that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, yeah, I've even experienced it as like, oh yeah, I think you were talking about this earlier, sort of like I'm showing up with a level of neutrality about the outcome too, right? Of like, if I get too invested in the thing I think you should do, that's not really what we're here for.
Right.
We're here, yeah, for me, like you said, to kind of deliver the message and you to maybe have a conversation about how you're hearing that and what you might do. But I think I definitely experience that as a therapist too, of like, I can't, it's not healthy necessarily, right? To get attached to like people's relationships or like how I think that they're going to do in therapy or the thing I think would be helpful. Because it's like, well, really, it's about them. And you just get to kind of helpfully be perhaps the conduit that can help them propel themselves in the way that they want to go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, we've been chatting for a while, so I'll
I
go ahead
know. I know. I
and
really enjoyed
wrap us
talking with
up.
you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so if you want to connect further with Dina, you can do that at their website, www.dinaberrin.com with two R's. You can find them on Instagram, YouTube, and their book, The Way Within, Igniting Your Intuition with Sacred Tools. If folks want to be a guest on the show, you can fill out my guest inquiry linked below. For any of the tarot decks we talk about, I'll have links to those in the show notes or on my website if folks need to go find them later or want to buy them. And yeah, thanks for joining me today on Everyday Tarot. Just a reminder, the podcast comes out every Monday morning, and you can email me, me@CamilleSaunders.com, with your thoughts, questions, and more. All right. See ya. Bye. Oh, no. There we go.